14 months before landing on the moon, Neil Armstrong was practicing landing the moon lander that was to go to the moon on the Earth itself, but this experiment failed miserably because Neil Armstrong failed to land this prototype. It was his luck that in the last 2 seconds he saved his life by ejecting himself, but after that, when Apollo 11 moonlander successfully landed on the moon, then conspiration Thorin, I could not control it on the ground itself, then how did it land on the moon? 54 years have passed since Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon, but even today many people believe that it was all a hoax created by NASA and America. Heard these conception theories? If you go by, they have a lot of substance too, they talk quite logically, after listening to which a common man is forced to think whether America had really lied to us. Were these moon landings shot in some desolate desert? Was done now? This is no coincidence or conspiracy. These theories find some excuse to revive after some time, as in 2002, when a man named Bart Sibley, who believed that the moon landings were fake, accused Apollo 11 astronaut Edwin Bush Aldrin of spying on the moon. When the media asked some irrelevant questions, Aldrin got angry and punched Bart Sibley in the face. This was the point when the theory against moon landings started to gain momentum once again. People were saying that there was a second person on the moon, Buzz Alert, who stepped in, probably thought it was a conspiracy theory and that is why he got angry. But what is the actual truth? Was NASA's moon landing real, or was it really a secret plan to humiliate the Soviet Union in the eyes of the world during the Cold War? During the beginning of the space race, it was the Soviet Union that sent the first satellite into space. Not only that, but the first unmanned spacecraft to touch the moon was also sent by the Soviet Union 10 years before NASA's Apollo 11 mission. So what happened then? That the Soviet Union was on the moon could not send humans even once, whereas NASA has done this work 6 times. Let us crack these theories one by one and try to find out the truth. The first thing which creates doubt in the minds of people is this camera was used to take photographs on the moon. Marcus Allen is a photographer who is very knowledgeable about this camera. He says that when I see the photographs taken on the moon, I cannot believe how the astronauts used such a complicated camera on the moon. He must have driven it, and that too from inside a spacesuit. A spacesuit is not an ordinary suit, but it is fully pressurized, which means in simple words, it is filled with air, due to which pressurized movement of hands and fingers is not possible. Conspiration theory Ralph Rainey, he performed an experiment in which he put his hand inside a container wearing astronauts' gloves. At first, he was able to move his hand and fingers freely, but as soon as he removed all the air from that container with the help of a compressor, the gloves became stiff and it was difficult to move the hand in this vacuum chamber. It had become very difficult to do this. They said that it is not possible to press the trigger of a camera or set the focus in this condition. If this is really so, then how are these memorable pictures taken on the moon so sharp and perfect? Aerospace engineer Jay Whitley says that the camera with which the astronauts took photos on the moon was a Hasselblad 500L camera, which was specially modified for lunar missions. It used to slide and attach to the astronaut suit, making it easy for the camera to be seen. The camera did not need to be held with the hands. The shutter button was large enough to be pressed with the astronaut's gloves, and the focus ring was modified so that it could be pressed with a stiff glove. It can also be rotated because they will not be able to see much left, right or up and down from the helmet of the spacesuit. That is why the astronauts had practiced this thing a lot on the Earth itself, so that they could capture good photos on the moon. Conspiration even in the best photos. Thorin Shadows, a former head of the American Rocket Dyna Company, believes that the shadows seen in the photographs are proof that we never went to the moon. He said that the shadows seen in many photographs taken on the moon are not true. They are not parallel to each other. When the Apollo 11 astronauts were present on the moon, the only source of light was the sun, so the shadows falling here should also have been parallel to each other. This is why many people believe that the photos were taken in a studio using an artificial light source, because the closer the light is, the further away the shadows will be from each other. As you can see in this photo, the shadow of the lander's landing gear is going in one direction, but the astronaut's shadow is going in the other direction. Now it may sound that perhaps these shadows are really being created due to artificial light source, but experts believe that it often happens on the ground too, that the shadows are not parallel to each other. It is necessary for the shadows to be parallel that the two objects are also apart from this. If the photo is taken at a wide angle, then even in that case the shadows will not appear parallel, or if the surface is not smooth, then also the shadows will not be parallel. Another theory which is often associated with the concept is Thorin Aldrin's lunar lander stairs. We are landing and the sunlight is not falling on the side of the lander, but still Aldrin is looking well lit. So what is the reason that the shadow of the lander is completely black while the light is falling on the body of the astronaut? Conspiration theorist Marcus Allen says that this is possible only if some other soft light is falling on them. Of course, due to the lack of atmosphere on the moon, the sunlight is not able to spread, but when this light falls on the surface of the moon, it gets reflected. And it bounces back. Just like our Earth is illuminated on a full moon night, in this photo, there is backlight falling on astronaut Aldrin which is reflecting from the surface of the moon. If we talk about lightning, then it is like the American flag. The light passing through is also looked at with suspicion. The concept is that if sunlight is falling on one side of the American flag, then how is the other side also perfectly lit? In fact, the American flag that was placed on the moon was made of nylon, and the specialty of this material is that it allows light to pass through easily. But if there is no wind on the moon, then why was it waving when the American flag was put up? Apollo 11 astronaut Bas Aldrin says that we had not practiced planting the flag on the moon's surface beforehand, and we had to twist the rod on which the flag was placed and apply downward force to bury it in the ground because gravity is very low on the moon, which is why the flag had to apply more force, and that is when the flag started moving more than necessary, due to which the onlooker would feel as if it is being waving in the wind. And the second thing was that the flag was already designed in such a way that there were aluminium rods on its sides. It was there, but a rod was also installed on its upper part so that the flag does not wither on the moon. Theory and famous author Ralph Runcie raised a question about the moon landing which is not possible to explain in the Earth's atmosphere. He says that when a blower is hit on soil or even small stones, the air pressure causes the soil and stones to move. This blower surely has much less power than the thruster of the moon lander, so what is the reason that it removed a lot of soil and stones but did not create even a small crater under the Apollo 11 lander, whereas it should have been? So it should have been that the soil flying from the surface of the moon at the time of landing would have completely covered these landing gears, but there is not even a little soil on it. On this, the physicist says that the rocket motors of the lander should have been switched on a few feet before landing. It was turned off, and by the time it touched the surface of the moon, the thrust had already reduced to 75. That is why it did not create any crater, but if you look carefully at the pictures, this thrust did remove some soil, which is seen scattered in different directions, but not enough to cover the landing gear. Let's assume that if the thrust was left at 25, then it would be 1,250 kilograms. If this much thrust had fallen on the Earth, it would have definitely created a big crater. But why it did not do this on the moon, this has not been explained yet in the Earth's atmosphere. This is another big question that often in the photos taken on the concept Thorin, the sky appears completely black, just like it looks on Earth at night. It comes, but why are the stars not visible in it? The lens of the camera also works like the human eyes. When we look in complete darkness, the stars of the eyes become bigger so that maximum light can enter. Similarly, the stars of the eyes, they become smaller when we look in the light. If you have ever had the chance, you must have noticed that at the time of stargazing, the surroundings are kept completely dark so that the stars in our eyes become bigger and even the slightest light from the stars reaches the eyes. But if in this situation any light, if it is turned on, the stars stop being visible. Similarly, in the Apollo 11 mission, when the photos were captured on the moon, the entire surface of the moon was shining with sunlight, due to which the camera lens did not capture the stars, because a lot of light was already going inside it, which was much more than the light of the stars. At that time, despite the sunlight falling on the moon, the sky was black because there is no atmosphere on the moon. The atmosphere of our Earth reflects the sunlight. It spreads light, due to which we see the sky in blue color during the day, but in reality the sky behind this atmosphere is black. Do you think that America really sent humans to the moon or not? Or if your mind is, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section.